What is up, everybody? Happy Wednesday. This is Adam Mason with the Bearded Talk podcast. Y'all, we're making it far in the year so far, guys. It just goes by fast. If you're not ready, it's gone. If you're not ready, it's gone. I want to tell you a little bit about something we got going on. We've got a few cool workshops happening in the Bearded Talk Facebook group. So if you're not already signed up, definitely go in there, togfb.com, aka togfb.com, to learn more. We've got workshops now on leads. We've got SEO stuff. We've got all kinds of business help for you guys. And so if you love hearing this podcast, you love the content that we put out here, you're going to love it in the Facebook group. So come join, come say hi, and start learning for free and start making a change in your business, y'all. Start doing it. Today's guest, one of my good buddies, Terri Baskin of Terri Baskin Photography here in DC. She is a powerhouse of a lady. Her work is really cool. Her personality is big and bold and wonderful. And she's just super sweet, awesome lady. Like, this is the kind of person you just want to be around all the time. Like our podcast episode, we were talking before the episode we recorded. We were talking after. She is just absolutely wonderful. Love her and love her insight that she shares in this episode. Without any further ado, here's Terri Baskin. Terri, how's it going? How you doing?
Hey, I'm good, Adam. Thanks for having me on your show.
Absolutely. You my show. You make me take this so seriously. You're so sweet.
This is so, I love it. I love it.
That's awesome. I appreciate it. You're a good company to have, where you can just help encourage people. So I love that. We were just kind of talking before the show and just talking about, the intentionality behind the Bearded Talk of like, I talked to some of my friends who are African American in DC, and DC specifically, for people who don't know, like the history of it is primarily African American. It's Chocolate City,
absolutely, Chocolate City, yes,
where like Marvin Gaye was from. Duke Ellington cut his teeth here, like Black Broadway and with U Street, and like all kinds of history here. And there's a whole community, a lot of people who are friends of mine who are in the African American photography creative community, and there's just like not a lot of people who know about them. And I feel like my favorite thing about this photography podcast is like, I want to introduce people and connect people and like, just let people be like, oh, I didn't know. Terri sounds so cool. Or like,
wow.
One of our buddies we've had on, his name is Dio Kosoko. And some people might be like something as dumb as like, oh, I've never heard somebody with that name. And I'm like, well, hey, this is a time, like we're trying to introduce people to people, and so anyway, that was a long rant. So I was like, listen, trying to have people on who are interesting and showcase people. Like I had a guy on last night and he was like, this is my first podcast ever. And I was like, that's why I reached out. Like I wanted to have, people who I look up to or I respect or I'm a fan of and be like, hey, like just because I might be the first one, but I won't be the last that you do,
Right. Absolutely.
So all that to say though, thank you for coming on. And I want to know, we're going to start off kind of hot here, Terri. I'm going to say
okay.
Controversial here. Are audiobooks actually reading? What's Terri's take?
So that's a great question. So I am an Audible subscriber. I have an account full of credits at the moment but you know what? I like audiobooks because I drive a lot to and from shoots, to weddings, to just other events and meetings. However, reading a book, I feel like I retain information a little bit better. Yeah, audiobooks, I tend to zone out because my attention span is short.
Sure, it can be tough depending on what you're reading if it's like really intense.
Yeah, and it all depends on the narrator, right? If the narrator is monotone or dull or boring, it's hard to follow. So
okay, yeah. I only asked that because I was like reading your bio and like looking at some other stuff, and I was like, I always try and find like a question you're not expecting.
I know. I'm like, wait, what? That's how we're gonna start.
No, exactly. I mean, sometimes we've asked people like, what's their favorite type of ice cream, because it just like helps break the ice. But
absolutely,
that specifically, my wife and she was like, audiobooks aren't reading. And I was like, what? You should support like this, gaining of knowledge, like if people like listening more, or like I'm a much better listener than I am a reader, maybe, I don't know. So I'm definitely on the side of it counts as reading. So I'm into it. Obviously,
I think it counts as information, and you have to be an active listener, right?
Yeah.
To follow an audiobook. So, she could have a point there. However,
she's a school teacher, so maybe she's biased.
Oh, there it is. That explains it all.
Like if she has a bad day and her kids are, not reading or not doing what they're supposed to be doing, she's probably like, listen, you don't even know, fool.
That's fair. I get it.
So Terri, we got to meet a few weeks ago at a really cool thing that, at least, I don't know if it was for you, but it was new for me, a second photographer workshop. So it was all about second shooters, which I thought was really cool. And I didn't have that when I started my business,
Right.
And it was super cool. We were on this panel, and I felt like I was the only guy there.
You were. Yeah, you were.
The only guy, and the only that's really was it. All three of you, the ladies that were on the panel, are like incredible luxury, and I'm like the redheaded stepchild of the group.
I totally disagree, first and foremost, because your work is amazing.
Nah, get out of here. I appreciate it. I was looking at your work today, and I was just like, man, I even found a new suit tailor based off one of your photos, because I saw a guy. He was like a bigger guy, had a beard, and I was like, oh, he looks good in that suit. I wonder who made it for him. Yeah. And I literally went to your vendor list on there and was like, oh, I'm going to follow them. I'm going to make an appointment soon. Anyway.
Oh, that's so funny. Okay, so it's so funny that you mentioned that, because that's been a conversation that I've had with other like wedding vendors is like, how many people or who all do we tag in these photos? And I'm like, okay, of course the photographer needs love, right? Because we're taking the photo. But then it's like, okay, do we tag everybody that has some part or piece of that photo? And it's like, yeah, why not? Because somebody else can find them through that photo. And so, boom.
Yeah, I think it probably takes a little bit, I've done it a few times. I don't do it for every photo, but like it definitely, it takes a little bit more work, right? To gather all that information and lay it out, make it look good, make sure Instagram's not going to mess it up because, whatever. Right. And, but like, you're totally right. I ask for as much as I can, but then sometimes some couples don't even know. They're like, I don't know where my earrings are from or whatever. So my policy is like, I share whatever the couple gave me.
Absolutely.
So and I've even had couples that were like, hey, we actually didn't like our DJ. Please don't share his name.
Been there, done that.
Yeah. So no,
it's always so awkward because that other vendor is waiting for, or they're looking like, oh, they didn't tag me. And I'm like, well,
yeah. Then do you call the other vendors and say, hey, I'm not going to tag you either because I don't want it to be awkward. Or anyway, that was not what this was about, but I love that. That's good insight. Oh my goodness. So Terri, tell me your story. Are you from DC? How long you been shooting? What kind of weddings do you like to shoot? How many you like to shoot? Social security number, whatever.
Yeah, right. All the good stuff. So actually I'm from North Carolina, born and raised. So you might hear that a little bit in my voice if I talk long enough. And so I've been in this area, and I actually live in Virginia. So so here's my story. Moved to Virginia from California. I've lived a lot of places. I'm not running from anybody, I promise. But I've lived a lot of places, right? So I've been in Virginia since 2006. So dating myself a little bit here. But, when I got into photography back in 2011, I believe, 2012, I wanted a higher end market. Like that was my goal. And I felt like I saw that in DC. So that's how I chose to start marketing myself once I got some experience with weddings. So people think I live in DC, or they think I'm from DC all the time. And so when I tell them, they're like, oh, it's like, it's like a wake up. But so got into weddings. My dad was a wedding photographer when I was growing up. So I saw like the old school. He had the dark room in the house. I would see him process. But he would go to the wedding. It's not as, how we are now, from start to finish, almost from the prep to the ceremony. He would literally show up at the church, take the wedding photos, take the, the group photos, family photos, and go to the reception just long enough for them to cut the cake. And then he was back home. A lot of times he was home before it got dark.
Yeah.
And now it's like, I'm driving back to Virginia after midnight some nights. So it's definitely changed. Uh-huh. I'm always trying to like, all right, let me make this drive home. So it's definitely changed. But I unknowingly I guess, got my love of photography from my dad. So that's kind of cool. He's happy. He's proud of that. And he was my second shooter for my first 3 weddings.
Wow, that's so cool.
Yeah, right? It's so cool, but he was worn out.
Yeah, because it's a longer day than what you're expecting, and age difference too. That's so funny how like people, I don't even know when it used to be like what you said. So I guess it would be like film. So I guess you can still have people rolling up maybe early 90s doing that kind of like arriving at a wedding and they're only there for 2.5 hours maybe, and then they're out. And like those people could easily do like 1 or 2 weddings in a day, or 3 weddings maybe, if have like a brunch wedding. Whereas like, you know, my wife will be like, Adam, so how long is the wedding today? I'm like, 17 hours, let's roll, you know, or whatever. Especially mine, because part of our branding point is like and you talk about the late drive home, and I just turned 31, and I'm just like, we used to say, oh yeah, we love to stay to the end, you know, that's like our favorite time. And now I'm like, I don't know if I want to keep saying this.
Yeah, not so much anymore.
Yeah, because you just like, you roll in, it's 1:30 a.m., you got your Taco Bell, you know, or whatever snacks you needed to stay awake, and you go down and you're like, okay, well, let me like still be in work mode, because I have to make sure these are backed up and
backing up the images. Yeah,
like doing the right thing. And then, at least for me, if I'm coming back from a wedding, I'm excited, so I can't even sleep sometimes. I'm like, dang it. So I'll usually just work, and you know, but if it's not that late, then it's a little bit easier to be in that routine. So
absolutely, I totally agree with you. And it's like you want to catch that high. So I try to send sneak peeks, you know, by the next day, and it turns into this cycle, right, where you're like weekend wedding, or Saturday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday wedding, backing up images, sending sneak peeks if that's something that you do, and then doing it all over again like the following weekend. So it's crazy, but that's you know, you really have to love weddings to do what we do, I think.
Oh, 100%. It's so funny. Like last year we went through this weird metamorphosis where like I used to blog every wedding no matter what. And because that's just like, you know, that's what my heroes did, right? Like we talked about that.
Yes.
And so I didn't know anything else. Well, one, I couldn't have told you if they weren't blogging every wedding. Like they never put it off in a way that happened, right? They easily could have been holding some back, but you know, every Tuesday, like Tony Hoffer would be like, "Hey, we got a new wedding on the blog," and I'm like, "Oh God, like how fast are they doing this?" And so it was just one of those things where last year though, I like talked to my mentor, and he's like, "Hey, you need to not blog everything," and I was like, "What?" You know, like we get so many good hits, and I love seeing Google Analytics, and you know, getting an inquiry like right that day, and they're like, what if I told you that that's still going to happen? And I was like, no way. And I don't know, I went back and forth. Like last year we probably blogged, I bet maybe like 15 weddings out of 40. And this year though, like this today I was like getting all the galleries ready for the last few weddings we've shot, and I was like, man, I want to blog these, like this would be so exciting, like these are good photos, and but it's at a venue I shoot at all the time, so I was like, well, like SEO, we don't get a benefit there, and like just like thinking too much about it, and part of me now is like, screw it, like our business is in a good spot, I am going to blog everything, or because I like it, you know, or whatever. Like,
oh, there you go. All right.
I don't know. Just like trying to, because I'm very much like a strategy person. Like, oh, if that's not working, let's cut it off or change it or whatever. And, but at the same time, like part of the reason we do this is because we enjoy it. And I'm like, no, like, let's just do it. Like if we like blogging, which I actually do, a lot of people don't.
Yeah, if you like it. Yeah.
Like, I'm like, yeah, let's go. And I like that hit. And I like seeing Google recognize it or whatever. But I don't know. That's super cool that you got to work with your dad. And I didn't know about the North Carolina thing. That's cool.
Yeah, that's home. That's home for, well, I haven't lived there in so long. So yeah, but that's where cool. The folks are and everybody. So yeah. And
then you're in Virginia now, married, kids?
No, not married. No kids. So no animals. It's just me.
If anybody's listening and loves a beautiful woman named Terri, you know, her address is, no, I'm just kidding.
No, you can give it out. No, I'm just kidding.
That's all. Listen, Terri is a goddess. So, you know, if you're listening to this, you probably don't deserve her. That's the reality.
Oh, wow. Can I forward that? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, you can play this clip for your friends. Yeah. But tell me a little bit about, so, you know, now you're in DC, kind of looked to the luxury higher end market. What does that look like for you every year? Like, how many weddings are you shooting? And then, you know, I think what is that? I'm trying to think. Are you still trying to grow in your like pricing and every kind of thing? Because I feel like the luxury market is so hard, but if you're there and like knocking on that door, you can do it. Or maybe for you, like your work is very diverse and different, and I feel like people probably feel more comfortable with you than other photographers. So like maybe that's playing a role in it. I don't know. That's a lot of questions. What do you think, Terri?
I know. So I shoot on average about 20 weddings per year. My largest year, so I've never been a volume photographer, only because I have so many touch points with clients, and it was, for me, for the longest time, I was in like a solo act, and then I would obviously hire my second shooters from like my group of friends that have a similar style as me.
Sure.
And so my highest number of weddings I did, I think, was in 2018. It might have been close to 30.
Okay.
And that was just a lot. That was a lot for me because I tend to, so I have this thing where I try and touch a client 7 times, meaning like communication or something in the mail, or just making sure they have like a good experience with me. I have this, I call my weddings like signature weddings. And so I want them to feel special, right? I want them to, they know they're not the only client, but I at least want them to at least feel like they have access to me. Right. If they need it, this is the most important day. So I've had to scale back to about 20 weddings per year in order to have effective touch points with those clients. As far as pricing, I am still raising my pricing. It's, you know how pricing can be like so tricky, because there's like, if you're too low, you're like in this dead zone, but then you still have to, if you're too high, and then the people that are in those markets don't know you, it's kind of like, so that trust factor may not be there. And so I think the beauty of how I've grown my business is I do have vendors that I've worked with in different markets who we're kind of like growing like along the same path, right? They're getting those quality and those luxury weddings. And I am one of the photographers that they tend to go to more often. So I end up working with a lot of the same people each year. So that's awesome. Been beautiful, because it's a referral thing, right? We refer back and forth. So that helps, right? I like working with them. We like working with each other. So that's been pretty cool too. Yeah.
That's cool. A lot of people don't realize, like, for wedding photographers who've been doing this for a hot second, like you, myself, Sarah Bradshaw, at least in the DC area, or even if you're doing 20, doing more, it's so nice to work with similar vendors, like, because it creates less work on your mind, like less anxiety to like walk in and be like, oh no, Terry's got it, or oh, like your favorite planner or whatever, and just be like, oh, she's got it or he's got it. I know the flowers are going to be sick, or I know she's got something special for here. And it's so nice. Whereas like I don't get nervous about weddings anymore, but I do get nervous about. I still do. I feel, you still get nervous a little bit?
Yeah, I get butterflies, yeah.
It depends on the couple, but I feel like, and what I ate the night before. I just be like, oh man, you made some bad decisions, Adam. You're going to have a bad day. Listen, Chipotle, right before every wedding, I like always tell myself, I'm like, Adam, you're going vegan, man. You're going to live healthy. You're going to have a 6-pack. And then after a wedding, I'm always like, hey, it's fine. You killed it today. You can reward yourself with something.
You earned it. You earned those calories.
Yeah. But it's I think the only time I get kind of anxious is if I find out if other vendors make a slate or whatever, right? Because then it's our
gosh, that's it. Yes.
Yeah, to make us up and or make it up, and then I hate to put them on blast right now. At least in DC, I can only speak for DC. There is not a lot of good videographers, and so there are certain weddings you show up to, and
we're on the same page.
I just feel like I get so stressed out. I'm like, what are you doing? Why are you wearing a hat at a luxury event? Why are your sunglasses still in your head? What are you doing? And that's the first 10 seconds when I'm analyzing. And then like, oh, you're going to make us be further behind, or like, they're not on the same timeline as us, or I don't know. And
it's crazy. That's so funny you mentioned that, because that's been such an interesting,
I can see you yelling at somebody.
Especially on the wedding day, if something is running behind and you're like, okay, come on guys, we got to make up some time here. Like, what are we doing?
No, it's so tough. I mean, we had a wedding a few weeks ago where different things happened, and there wasn't a videographer, thankfully, but things just got pushed behind by like people dropping the ball, or it was a good team. It was all people that I know and like and would refer again, but it was like little things were just piling up. And as a photographer, it's like, okay, yeah, well, we get whatever the result of that is. So like,
Absolutely.
if somebody is stressed about y'all, whether it's the transportation or planners, florists, whatever, and then she, like it's our job to be like, oh, we now, have, 25 minutes for wedding party, couple and family, where we had 45 or we had an hour, and you're like, all right, here we are. Like, you're going to see me work my best, but I don't want to work like this at all.
Oh my gosh. We're totally on the same. We're like twins, Adam.
Yeah. We're just,
no, seriously. It's like I walk into a room, like the suite, like the bridal suite on the wedding day, and it's like, all right, how are we on time? It's like one of my first questions. Like, of course, I introduce myself to everyone, and then I can immediately scan the room to see, like, all right, we're behind, or we're not. And it's like, and there's, some makeup artists and some hair, stylists here that I absolutely love, because if you give them a timeline, they will stick to it. But then there are some that are notorious for, like, yeah, you do an amazing job. However, we're now an hour behind schedule.
Yeah. I wish they would just, and man, maybe it's not their fault either. Like if they tell the bride, hey, you need to be ready at 5:30 a.m. and the bride's not there till 6:15, that pushes them back. But like,
I've seen that before.
I just like, oh, like, come on, let's all do this. And no, man, I don't even know. Like, I wish I knew more about makeup so I could just walk in and I could tell, but I really can't. So I have to awkwardly ask every time.
Oh,
like,
you can't? Oh, yeah. I'm into makeup, so I can usually tell, how far are we into like the contour, the eyeshadow.
I would have no idea. Oh man, I was going to think of something.
We have some of the planners I work with, though, it's so funny because they have their team of people. Like every vendor, they have their people. Yeah. And it's so cool to walk in and see a familiar face. And you're like, oh, hey, okay, yeah, we're good to go. We're good. So, yeah.
Hey, everybody, just want to hop in here and thank our sponsor, Tave. Have you guys ever dropped the ball on a client, missed an email, or forgot to schedule a meeting? It's embarrassing, right? Not only does it make you look unprofessional, but it also makes you look less valuable. That's where Tave comes in. Tave is one of the most advanced and customizable platforms for managing your photography business. I use it. It's literally what I use every day. I've been offered money from other studio management softwares that you have probably heard of on other podcasts. They are offered me a lot of money, double what Tave offers. And I said no, because I use Tave every day and it's changed my business, and it's been such a great ride using Tave. Before Tave, I had to manage everything by myself: calendar, invoices, payments, second photographer, contracts, quotes, proposals, everything. It was awful. It was absolutely awful. But now I manage over 60 clients a year. And even as we grow the team at Mace Photography, Tave is making it super easy for all of us to get every single client the luxury client experience they deserve and that we want them to have. One of my favorite features of Tave, guys, you know this, is the booking reports. Tave tracks all of your inquiries, how they found you, or how much you got paid. This makes looking at booking trends of when you're getting booked, when you need to raise prices, when you need to lower prices. It just helps you have the data so you know where to shift and what you need to do to make your business awesome. I've used Tave for years now, and it's changed Mason Photography forever, and it's put us on a path that is going to make it bigger than I could ever imagine. Whether you're a wedding photographer or videographer, headshot guru, or boudoir panda, Tave can work for you. Boudoir panda, this is insane. The guys over there have hooked it up for Bearded Talk listeners, guys, to give a try. Instead of Tave's normal 30-day free trial, you guys are going to get an extra 30 days. So the Bearded Talk listeners get 60 days total to try it out, set it up, and get your lives back. Head over to thebeardedtalk.com/Tave to sign up and get your extra special 60-day free trial today. That's thebeardedtalk.com/TAVE to try out Tave and get your life back today. Thanks to Tave for sponsoring our show. Yeah, with the makeup artists, it's one of those things where, like I want them to do the best job, but I'll tell you what's happened in the last year or two as we've really honed in on our brand and honed in. I feel late to the game. I feel like all of you guys that I respect, especially in DC in the luxury market, are so good and dialed into their brand. Whereas it took me a few years of practice, I feel like, or finding out okay, why do people like me and why do I like doing this? What, impact do I want to have on the world? What does this look like? And then now over the last 18 months, 2 years, we finally hone that in. You'll be surprised. There are weddings where we show up and our brides will be like, Adam, I don't want any photos of my rings or shoes or any of that stuff. And the makeup artist will be done early. So there's plenty of weddings, probably 10. So a third of all my weddings last year, I'd show up to, the Line Hotel or District Winery or whatever. And hair and makeup would be done and they'd be gone already. And I'm like, oh, okay, so you're ready for me. They're like, yeah, we're itching to put this dress on. I'm like, oh my gosh, like you've just been playing Candy Crush, for 30 minutes.
Love it.
Which is cool. But, I think I attract a lot of like type A brides who are like very orderly, very good with boundaries. And they're excited for photos. They're excited to like have cool, badass photos with their friends or whatever. And not to say that the makeup artists prevent that, but I think in the like luxury wedding experience, like, and I don't mind shooting getting ready at all. But I wonder if my brides are just like, no, we don't care about that. We want other stuff. And so it's kind of been fun. It's kind of cool, but it makes a shorter wedding day, usually earlier start time. But it's always just shocking to show up and be like, hey, did you do your own makeup? Like, what's going on here?
Yeah, that's so funny because you know how like what you kind of show you attract or you put out there. And so I like the details because I am a girly girl. And so I love to see like all of the little fine, elements that they put into their day or their styling. So I tend to shoot that for them. But I've had brides before that are like, yeah, don't really care. But I think sometimes it comes down to, are we submitting this for publication? And not that every publication needs those type of shots. It's just kind of more of a plus. But yeah, I've had both. I've had some that they give me so many details. I'm like, okay, I have a lot of work to do. And I have some that are like, here's this. And then we go on. So I get to tell more of the fun, the candid story. So it's so fun for me walking into a suite on a wedding day and just seeing like what the atmosphere is like. Like, are they excited? Are they hyped, turned up, or are they just kind of like chilling and relaxing, So I totally like vibe off of their energy, but then sometimes I'm like, all right, we got to turn on some music here. We got to get this going. Get this fun.
No, that's super good. I want to ask you how do you deal with this? What's the Terri way? So like, let's say a couple hires you and you ask them maybe, hey, what photos did you enjoy of mine? And they say, yeah, we love the hype, fun, high energy, whatever that looks like, sexy Beyonce and Jay-Z in front of the French Museum look. And then on wedding day, their personalities are more nervous and reserved and, quieter, slower. What's Terri's like go-to way of like helping them get to where they want to go?
Yeah, so you nailed it. The engagement session is usually where I first get to meet a couple and see like their chemistry and their energy. And then I've seen on the wedding day, it can be the opposite. Either they can be super, super high energy or they can be super laid back because they're nervous. And so on a wedding day, like I'm usually excited because I'm a little bit nervous. So my nervousness kind of turns into energy for me. And so I know before the wedding kind of what they're looking for in their photos. And so I tend to try and show in my work either joyful, happy, or romantic images. But I always tell them, be true to whoever you are. Like if you're not the group of girls that's dancing on the bed, then you don't have to do that on your wedding day because you saw those in some of my pictures, So it's like whatever it is that their personality has shown me either through the engagement session or just through my conversations with them in one of my touch points, that's what I try and bring out of them on the wedding day. So that may look like, music, or that may look like I had a really, really reserved bride who was a physician last year, and she was just lay back. She was just super, super chill. And so a couple of her friends were just hilarious. So to get her nerves out, we just started I started asking the bridesmaids questions, and it just turned into like almost like a comedy show because we were just laughing so much. And those are like some of my favorite images from the early part of her wedding day because she was just really enjoying the moment with her friends. Nothing was staged. It was just more of just general conversation that turned into laughter. And it was so fun. But then I thought like, okay, that's who she is with her friends, ignore the camera. And so, yeah, it was fun.
Have you always been kind of like that? I feel like that's like a super mature way of looking at it. Like when you were starting a few years ago, or like, would you ever tell a second shooter, like, hey, like tell them that to disregard the camera, or tell them that they, they can just be themselves, or like, how would you make that work?
Yeah, I don't necessarily tell my second shooters what to do. I just kind of, tell them what type of images to make sure they get, but I work with some of the same people. So they already know, we know each other's style. But yeah, I get some people that want to perform for the camera or want to pose. And I'm like, yeah, just ignore me. I'm just here. Just ignore me. Because I feel like I can't really, if they're too camera aware, I'm not really capturing those real moments. And so I just want to just kind of be in the room, but not really taking up space in terms of them, paying attention to me. I want them to do what they would normally do. Those always end up being some of my favorite images versus the ones that are too posed or too planned, I guess.
Yeah, because it's like weddings are similar to other weddings in general, but it's like, hey, like we're doing this like bride and bridesmaids on the bed in front of the window light, and like this is somebody else's photo that we're making right now, and right. It's like we're totally fine, we're down to shoot it, but guys, like, is this who you really want to be? Like 30 years from now, will this be the image that you're like, yeah, like we love the bed, we love the Hampton Inn is so hype, and I'm just like, listen, y'all, the Residence Inn, I don't think their bed is anything to show off on, and this 1990s architecture is it's not it's not doing anything for any of us.
That's going to be like the throwback old school photo one day.
Yeah. Well, one of the things, I'm sure you do the same thing. So like the first thing I do, and I even asked some of my second shooters this, I'm like, hey, what's the first thing you do when you walk into a wedding day after saying hello? And they're like, I just start shooting and, slinging, making bangers. And I'm like, what are you talking about? One. And then two, I'm like, well, you want to hear my answer? It's a lot more boring. I turn off the lights and I throw away all the water bottles.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, that too.
I'm like, those are the two things that I do. I'm like, I want the same white ballots for everything. And I think water bottles will time our photos someday. And I don't want to Photoshop that out. So
no, so smart. I do that too. And it's so funny because, there's always like a mom or somebody's like, hey, you need more light. And they're trying to turn the lights back on. I'm like, no.
Oh, whatever the opposite of love language is, that's that right there. It's moms being like, oh, would you like some more light? I brought a lamp over. I'm like, right. Hey, listen, Sheila, I appreciate this so much. You're a goddess and I appreciate you, but this is, we don't really need this. Okay. Like, listen, there's a ball of fire 93 million miles away right now, and it is doing a fantastic job through this Hampton Inn window. And, just let me know. It's going to be great. Oh, man. But hey, at least we got moms who are trying to help instead of hurt, right?
They are absolutely trying to help, and I was like, no, I'm just like, let me, I got it, no worries.
Yeah, that's like what we talked about. We're talking about eating before the night before. I'll show up to a wedding, and again, you're like, yeah, I don't usually eat anything. I don't drink in general, so it's easy for me to turn down alcohol. But because I feel like my life is pretty lit and fun without alcohol. So I'm a pretty fun guy.
Yeah.
But, you walk to a wedding and they have like banging food and it smells so good. And they're like, hey, do you want some? And you're like, I do, but no, like I want to work. And, like, who knows, especially if it's risky, right? So they're like, yeah, we got some chips and queso or I don't know, whatever's going to just like murder your body the rest of the day. You're like, dang it. This is a lot of TMI. I'm sorry, Terri. You did not sign up for this.
No, it's totally fine. I'll some people try and force food on you. You're like, okay, I'll take you. I'll eat it later. And so it's like a bag of chips or something like that. Then definitely. But yeah, I try not to.
Yeah, I only risk it during the reception. That's what I'm like, okay, yeah, I'll eat whatever. Or, oh, they brought out, the midnight, chicken fingers and fries. I'm in, Oh, that's so funny. That's awesome. What do you got going on this year? Anything you're excited about? Anything you're pumped for?
Yeah, I'm excited about actually Saturday. So I know this will air later, but I'm going to Dubai for Engage Summits. Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool.
I don't know if you're familiar with Engage Summits, but they're a luxury wedding photography conference.
Yeah.
And so I decided to go this year because I really wanted to see what does that look like. If I want to make sure I'm catering to my clients in a way that they feel like they're a part of a luxury experience, I want to see what that looks like from a conference standpoint. And then also I'll be doing some education later this year. So I also want to see how I can turn it up and not do the same thing that I've seen other people do. So so that's kind of what I'm doing on an educational front for me. And then or as far as investing in myself. And then I'm also doing like one-on-one mentoring with up and coming photographers, and I'm trying to launch some fun ways for photographers to learn. It's hard. It's always hard for me. And I don't know how you do this or if you do this, but when someone DMs or, sends a message and they want to come and shadow on a wedding day, and I'm just kind of like, ooh, that's hard. They want to pick your brain.
Yeah. I think people don't realize, and we talk about this all the time on this podcast. If we should call this like the anti-pick your brain podcast, but no. Like even especially for Terri and I, and this is not us coming from a place of like we're better than you or anything like that, but like these events are expensive. These events are like $100,000 weddings, and we just can't bring somebody who's never been to a wedding with us and expect them to perform at our level. And if Terri or I get sick, or we need our back breaks during whatever, I don't know what was happening, and we need somebody to cover for us, like we need our second shooter to be ready to roll. And
absolutely,
and a lot of people just don't understand that. And so,
and it's not a jab, or like you said, it's not us thinking we're better than anybody. And honestly, I've learned it from experience where I've tried to not as a second photographer, but as a third or an assistant. And I brought people on board. But, I can remember a wedding where we ran behind an hour. And so I'm like, these people invested in photography. I got to perform and give them something. And I was working with a photographer that was pretty new and hadn't been to a lot of weddings. And so they didn't know to watch out for my camera. So they were in my shots, and I was like, hey, I need you to get out of my shot. And I felt like that just wasn't the right environment for them to learn, because I couldn't take time to explain everything because I had to give my client what they paid for. So yes, I'm with you with that.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's 100%. It's one of those things where at least what we did, and people kind of get pissy about it, but it's working for us. So we said our rule of thumb now is no one's allowed to shadow or hold my bag or pick my brain for a wedding. But I'm always available if they want to come on an engagement or they want to come on like a fun, like just for fun shoot or whatever, to hold my bag or whatever. It won't be paid, but they can ask me anything and watch me how I'm happening. But then if they sign up to be a mentee, part of our mentorship program is that like only mentees are allowed to come to weddings with us.
Nice.
And so it really helped kind of create that boundary. And so, most people always say, oh, well, what's mentorship look like? Or how much does that cost? And you show them and they go, oh, wow, I can't afford that. Or that doesn't feel right for me. And we say, hey, cool, great. That's not a good fit for us either. Like we take this seriously. We shot 200 weddings, over the last few years, and we plan on shooting 100 weddings a year for the next 10 years. So like we care about this, right? And these couples care. They hired us and they trust us. And so it's like the people that are bought in though, then it's even more. And I'm like, yeah, like if you pay for my attention, like I will gladly give you everything I got. And like, it'll be like drinking from a fire hose,
No, seriously, I'm an open book, but at the same time, it's like, I feel like it has to be mutually beneficial.
Yeah.
Right. So if I'm pouring into someone, then what, then what happens? Or if I'm taking time away, but I do love when people come on an engagement shoot with me because I can talk, it's more late. Like you said, it's more laid back. It's fun. Right. And it's a no pressure or low pressure situation to show them. And then, but totally with you on that. So I'm actually working on, some type of course where I'm still I've fleshed it out with my business coach, but I am trying to put the details together on a more formalized approach to photographers that do send messages about wanting to come. Like you said, like outside of a wedding day, we can do, X, Y, and Z. And then if they get to a certain point where I feel like, okay, they're knowledgeable enough for weddings, they can come, then I want to have like a little bit more of a formal process in place. And that's only because I've been burned like by, I've been in situations where it just didn't work out. And not that the person was a bad person or, the relationship was cool after the fact, but it was more so like, I can't give you the attention I know I need to give you. And so this is actually, I'm doing a disservice in this particular environment. So
Yeah, like any relationship, like boundaries are important, y'all. People need to know what's up. And I think we have an episode, it's an old one, but it's 4 second shooters and like how to be a good second shooter. And a lot of it is like outside of, the actual photography part of it, it's like, guys, like just do things that don't embarrass us, right? So like don't go ham on social media and be tagging us and be tagging the clients or anything like that. I'm like, hey, if you want to run it for us or take some behind the scenes photos and video and then like text it to us later that night, that's a way that you're like serving and helping and adding rather than taking away. And it's one of those things that it's a different philosophy though, because people are like, oh, I'm there to learn, and you're like, well, yeah, like, but the first thing there is that you're there to serve. And
yes,
which is the same as you and I. Like, we're not there like, hey, I'm here to be awesome. Like, we're also there to serve, and so like we need people coming with us that fit that mindset.
Absolutely. Yep, I'm with you.
Yeah, I didn't mean for us to just be harping on second shooters and assistants.
No. I mean, but that's how we met. So, which is cool because I was already aware of your podcast. I used to listen to it, and I first back.
Oh, what's up?
Yeah, a few years ago, you interviewed my friend, one of my girlfriends, Ashley Bing. So yeah, I was like, that's when I was like, oh, cool, this is cool. So I've listened to quite a few episodes, and I've actually found a few people that I didn't know of through the podcast. But then to meet you in person, this big personality in person as well, I was like, oh wow, this is fun. Whereas like the rest of us were kind of like, we're kind of just laid back and
whatever.
Cool.
Yeah, these other
fun.
Ladies running these successful businesses, and I'm just trying to make it, y'all. Like
whatever.
That is so funny. Well, one, I love Bing. I'm gonna call her out a little bit. So we were supposed to. She came on the podcast. She's great. I forget how I met her. I met her at a Tuesdays Together, like Rising Tide thing.
Oh yeah.
And
okay.
Her and this woman, Tiffany Tolliver.
Yeah. She's a branding. Yes.
Yeah. Super cool. And they were so just nice and sweet. And I don't know, like for some odd reason, we just like caught each other's eye and started chatting at this event. And it was just really cool. And it was really fun. And then I had both of them on the podcast. And then Bing, I was like, hey, we should hang out. Or like, hey, do you want to like talk, or like, I don't know, let's get coffee. I always want to like get together with vendors and just be like, hey, let's do like a few hours of laptop work together or something.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Just get out of the house, like especially DC, like there's like 10 so many wedding photographers. So I'm like, hey, let's just hang out. Like no stakes. Like there's no expectations. Like
it's lonely out here.
Yeah. Like, what are you working on? What are you hoping for? Like there's no, I think that's one of the things too for me I've grown in is that I don't feel like there's like I don't feel like competition in a way. So like for you and I, like we're in the same market,
Same.
but I don't feel I'm competitive, but I'm not competitive against like other people too much. It's especially in that vein where I'm like, oh no, we're friends. Like Terri can tell me any decision Terri makes is not going to affect me, and vice versa. And that's kind of cool, because we're like, we have different goals and different mindsets, and
absolutely.
But it's like we seldom want to like talk about what's going on underneath the hood, and it's just like, no, let's just talk about it, and like it's fine, and whatever. But at the same time, we've all, like you said, in every way you can imagine, we've all been burned, right? Like this is all built on trust, and so it can be sticky and it can be weird. So, but that's cool though. You're doing education and going to engage. So going back to that, I wish I had known. I would have gone with you. I just need a buddy to go.
I'm
it looks
excited.
so cool.
I'm looking forward to it.
One of my good buddies is speaking, I think, Sam Jacobson. So definitely go. Anything that he's teaching, you want to go to. He's the man. Just like high level, like sales psychology, to where you're like, oh, I have a lot of work to do, but I trust you, Sam. It's super good. And then it always looks so fun. And Dubai, like it's friggin' Dubai. So
I know. I'm like, wow, I've never been. I'm excited. They have it like 3 different locations a year.
Yeah.
And so I'll usually do like one that's international, and then a couple that are stateside, or 1 or 2 that's stateside. And so I was like, I could go to South Carolina, but no, let's do Dubai. Like I'm on this whole why not, like live life.
I love that.
And,
I love that.
Do it. So yeah.
That's so cool. Well, hey, if you like the Dubai one and you want to go to another one, let me know. And you need a buddy, like I'll gladly go, because it's one of those things where it's like it's easier to go with a homie, or at least have somebody to like sit in class with you, or like, hey, we're going to go to this like cool dinner later that night, and oh, you're going to dress up, all right, I'll dress up too, or whatever. And like network. Whereas I've heard stories of people going and they enjoyed it, but they're like, if they're an introvert or they go alone, And most of the time they'll assume that everybody's friendly, but sometimes it doesn't work out. You're like, oh, I'm back in my hotel room, like just chilling.
Right. Oh gosh. I'm kind of an introvert. So like literally I can be the most lively, excited person at a wedding. And then I can drive home with like no music, no nothing, just quiet because I need to recharge. But I've been at conferences like that before. I'm like, okay, I don't know anybody. So
that's awesome. Well, hey, yeah, maybe I'll try to plan on going I don't want to go to South Carolina or Florida, but whatever they do international next year, I'll plan on.
There you go.
We're like, listen, y'all, I don't, the Breakers is cool, but come on, it's South Florida. Anyway, I don't mean to dog South Florida, but
no, but yeah, I'm just trying to get out of my comfort zone a little bit here. So
that's awesome. Guys, if you're anything like me and you're on the East Coast, your wedding season is about to be here or already here, and it's time to think about how you're going to make more money than you did last year. At least make 3%, which is like cost of living, right? You need to make more money than what the government decides is cost of living raises for yourself, okay? Give yourself a raise. During wedding season, I'm always thinking about how I can expand and generate more revenue in my business. It's something you need to be thinking about. Most of the time, I come up with ideas that usually seem like more of a hassle than a help, right? So it's like in-person sales, album sales, meeting with more people, selling, which is something that I suck at and I feel uncomfortable with, and I'm just not there. But what if there was something that you could start generating more money today and could align with your brand values and your personality? That's where Photo Booth Supply Co. comes in. Photo Booth Supply Co. is an incredible photo booth company based in California whose sole goal is to help you make more money. I have their new booth. It's called the Salsa, and it's leveled up Mesa photography for sure. I chose the Salsa because it fits my brand, guys. So no printers, no paper, no heavy photo booth. Like I can take this on a plane with me. It's super light. Salsa is a digital-only, selfie-style, and eco-friendly photo booth. It's all in one. You don't even need to hire an attendant. It literally takes Salsa 60 seconds to set up, and the booth runs itself. It's light enough that anybody can carry it, add it to their trunk, put it in the back of an Uber if you're in a big city. I even know photographers who bring it with them to destination weddings with them. How cool is that? My favorite part of Salsa is that even at a wedding where it's generating more revenue for my business, it's also doing marketing. So it's like 2 in 1. For every photo, boomerang, GIF, video, whatever, it asks for a phone number and an email of where to send that content to. So wedding guests are there hanging out using the photo booth, and then they get a text from me that says, hey, here's your awesome photo. You look great. Follow me on Instagram, or hey, it gives them advice about where to find the gallery or where to go next. And it keeps people in the loop with your business. It's so, so cool. So there's plenty of weddings where I've left and I'll have more Instagram followers because of the booth. And sometimes I'll even get an inquiry from an engaged couple that's attending a wedding, or just a couple that's like, hey, we want to know how much you cost so that when we get engaged, we can hire you. It's super, super cool. Salsa is very affordable, guys, too. You don't have to break the bank. They even have payment plans, so you don't have to save up to start making more money. You can start today. Head over to thebeardedhog.com/booth, get your Salsa photo booth, and start making more money on every wedding or event today. That's thebeardedhog.com/BOOTH. Big thanks to Photo Booth Supply Co. for sponsoring our show. What is one thing that you would say to people who, like, what's one piece of advice that you want to give to people that you wish you had, 5-10 years ago?
Ooh, that's a good question. You know what? You know what I did early on is I followed any and everybody. Like I followed their work and I tried to mimic their work. And I realized I was frustrated because I could go to one, workshop or, conference or learn from, or do a mentor session with one photographer, and they had a totally different style from another photographer. Then I would go to the next one and try and, mimic their style. So instead of just figuring out, okay, who is Terri? What does she want to do? How does she want to relate to her clients? What does her work look like? Or what will her work look like? I think I was trying to be like a carbon copy of someone else. And so what I would say to anybody like this just starting out is figure out what you like, and then try and just hone in on that either same style or just, same experience or whatever. So that way you're not confused. I was all over the place and my work showed that I was all over the place, honestly. So I think that would be my advice.
That's good advice. I feel like, a lot of people, when they first start out, you just don't know where to look or where to go, right? Yeah. And in DC, I wonder if it's a blessing and a curse that there's so many photographers, and there are people in DC who don't know who Terri Baskin is, don't know who Adam Mason is, don't know who Sarah Bradshaw, who don't even know who Abby Jew is, right? These people who are all, at the end of the day, we don't have to be celebrities to be running successful full-time businesses. but you just don't know. Like people just don't know, and it's a blessing and a curse. So the blessing is like, oh wow, yeah, like we can still be successful, and like clients can still find us. There's enough bread for everybody. But the curse I could see is like, well, you want to get into this business. Well, who do you talk to? You know, where do you go? Which route do you take? Do you know? And it's just such a funny, bizarre thing. I know for me, what really helped me, like in that vein, I just love what you said, is like I played guitar since I was 10 years old, and like I went to school on scholarship for guitar. And
oh, cool.
So I think the one thing that helped me was like I knew how to learn, or I knew like how to like dive into a subculture or something, you know, or whatever, like this craft. And so, you know, in the music world, it was like, okay, yeah, like who are your 5 heroes? And I use that word heroes a lot, and like I don't mind sharing it, you know. And it's like for photography, I had the same thing. I had 5 people, and I could kind of tell you like what I wanted from each one. So I'm like, oh, I love their just like fun, you know, personalities with their clients. I love their client relationship. And then like, which my heroes probably looked a lot different than other people, because I was like, I want my work to look one way. I want my clients to feel this way, but then I want my client experience to be like that of a luxury vendor. And because a lot of my clients that are getting, you know, or the people that shoot like how I was shooting are not doing the luxury thing. They're doing the, hey, I'm a good photographer, hire me thing. And I was like, well, man, what if we could give people, you know, colorful, fun photos, but still have, like you said, like those touch points, and still like, I got to mail out, you know, thank you for booking packages tonight, you know, or whatever. And, you know, in my custom branded boxes,
right.
You know, but it's like, I love that. I just got texts today from brides who got them last week, and they're like, oh, this is so cool. Like, thank you so much. And I'm like, yeah, just because you gave me this big deposit doesn't mean I'm going to stop thinking about y'all. So I might as well like, you know, hook you up. And it's, I think it's a good thing to do. And what I tell my mentees is like, you know, if they're a full-time mentee with me, I say, hey, like, you have given me a ton of money and a ton of you're devoting a ton of your time, you know, for this year, you know, I'm going to be your hero, you know, and hopefully they sign up because of that, no matter what. They're like, no, I really like this Adam guy. But it's like, yeah, pick a lane and don't just follow them for a day for a workshop. Follow them for a few months and say, okay, yeah, like, I think I like what's going on here, how they do that, how they address this situation, whether that's photo, business, caption, whatever. And it's so useful. Whereas like, you follow like 1,000 you know, photographers, and you're like, oh, I'm getting nowhere, you know, or whatever. I think a buddy of mine said it was like chasing foxes. Like if you have 3 foxes, you can only grab one of their tails, which is a very weird, bizarre thing. But it's like, yeah, you can only pick one and like chase it down and figure it out and see where that goes. And then if you get to where it goes and you want to make a new decision, you can. But I don't know. Absolutely. That was a really long rant.
No, I'm totally with you. And then the part about your 5 heroes, oh my gosh, that was good. Because I realized like when I was following people, I didn't have, I guess I wasn't as strategic as I could have been like on what I wanted to learn from that person. So just kind of knowing like, sometimes, yeah, obviously it takes following them to figure out what you like or what you like from someone else a little bit better. But yeah, that was cool. Like if you're all over the place, then obviously it's going to show in everything you do that you're all over the place. So no, yeah, that's cool.
I think people don't, you know, like it also too, you have to know, you know, what you're looking for too. So like I've only been to a few workshops, but you know, it's like I went to a workshop where the photographer was like very technical, made very cool, interesting images that no one, you know, could make at that time. And so I wanted to learn a little bit about that. But he also, you know, it's a workshop. So he also taught, you know, his marketing strategy, his whatever, and that kind of stuff. And I was like, oh, well, yeah, I'm already getting clients. This is all great. Like, it wasn't a bad thing. I didn't think that I loved the workshop. I didn't think I got less value. But I was like, oh, I'm going in because I want to learn. I'm mining for gold. Like, I want this one thing. Anything extra is icing on the cake.
Yes.
You know, and but I do remember one of my big things is like workflow and just your process, like everything down to like how many batteries do you charge, you know, the night before a wedding or whatever. And I asked one of my like heroes, I was like, so do you do anything to prep your car the night before a wedding? And he was like, no. And I was like, okay, cool. And it almost like gave me permission to not have to care about my car the night before a wedding. But it's like a real deal. Like, oh, I don't have a full tank of gas. But it's like, oh, but the truth is he would leave for weddings like 30 minutes or an hour more than he thought he needed to. One, for DC traffic.
Yeah, obviously DC traffic.
Yeah, but then two, like, yeah, if a situation like that arose, or is like, oh, I got to get gas, podcast, like, yeah, it's going to take 20 minutes, or less or whatever. He was ready. And I was like, okay, cool. Like just those little things that, again, we're not going to go to like a car, prepping for weddings workshop, but these are real things that like nobody talks about. Of like, shit, we need to know.
Yeah, no, seriously. Where I'm coming from Virginia, so I need to have a full tank of gas because never know what traffic's going to be like. But yeah.
Terri, that's my number. Like every other day, I'll be like, I want to move to Virginia. I want to buy a house. I want to live out there. I want my vote to matter. Like all the reasons. Whereas like living in DC, it does not matter.
I was about to say, that's different. But
but the other days, I'm like, oh no, I'm 20 minutes from a venue I shoot at 15 times a year.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, I want to ask you if you don't mind sharing, just for fun. This might be embarrassing, but when you were first starting, who were like 2 or 3 of your heroes? I think that'd just be fun to know. Like now that we're talking about it.
Oh gosh, when I first started, my heroes were Caitlin James, Ike and Tosh. They were wedding photographers / senior photographers, and I thought I wanted to do like a hybrid, and I was like, no, seniors. Love them, but not for me. They were awesome. The ones that I did photograph, but I was like, that's not really my lane. And then I loved Danielle Finney. She does amazing portraiture, and I just loved her colors and her images. And I love her personality. I consider us friends. So yeah, those were the 3 that I first started learning from. And so interesting, they're all they're different. They're very different in their style and their approach, but they're all so talented at what they do. So
that's super cool. That's awesome. I feel like Caitlin James was one of mine. She was my client experience person. So I was like, hey, like,
oh, absolutely, yeah.
My work's not going to look like hers, but she said something once. I forget where it is, but it's such a big thing that so many photographers, like they just don't understand that your brand can be so much bigger than the work you create, and you can make more, you can be happier, you can be more fulfilled. Like you can have clients that get you, understand you, trust you, want to do what you want to do. If you just like act like it. But she said something like, yeah, my photos, because people were like, oh, how much do you charge? And she's like, oh, we start at 11,000 or 12,000 or whatever. And they're like, wow. And she's like, but guys, like my photos are only worth like 3,200. And they're like, what?
Seriously, yeah. She can have some, yeah.
And she's just like, yeah. Like that is one of those things where I think for all of us, we have to have like heart to heart. Like even for, we think of not to down her on the podcast because she can't defend herself. But like Abby Jew, like I love her and her work is insane, right? But her brand is much bigger than the photos by themselves.
I think you get all of it included, and that's what you're paying for. Like all of it. Like it's not just the photos, it's the experience, it's the, they know what they're doing, but then they also make their clients that their investment is worth it. So yeah.
And same for you. Like they're not just hiring another photographer, they're hiring Terri.
No, they're hiring. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's why I try so hard. And all these photographers, I'm like, listen, I've been there. I used to never show my face anywhere by my company, and now I do the opposite. I mean, I show my face a lot, and our business is better. With that. Terri, it's so like you did not sign up for this, and I don't know like why, but listen, like all your clients love you, and the clients that want you are out there looking for you, and you just got to show up. And
you're right. Yeah. I'm hard. Like I'm so like, how like you're pretty good at it. I saw your wedding you did the other week at District Winery, and you're going behind the scenes. I'm so awkward. I'm like, okay, I got to do more of this, but then or I like forget. And like, oh shoot, we need to do something like some behind the scenes or some, so I'm working on it. I'm trying to do better, but it's still weird.
Here, I'll give you a tip. I think I'll give you a tip. So on wedding days and District Winery weddings, I feel like for me are, I already feel so comfortable and relaxed that I'll probably be a little bit goofier than normal. But, throughout the wedding day, like, don't even plan out like the content. Be like, oh, I want to get a good behind the scenes of this or anything like that. But just like, kind of the same way that we get our clients to say, hey, take a breath right here and just enjoy this moment, whatever. We're doing portraits and we've only got 6 minutes. Like, hey, let's make these 6 minutes feel like an hour. Like, let's just enjoy it. But for you, like, don't even post directly to Instagram. Like maybe just take a little iPhone photo or like, hey, I love this bouquet, or like a little behind the scenes or whatever. Hey, here's like what it looked like through my lens, or like just do that. And just so like practice getting the content, or like taking a selfie with your favorite planner or whatever, and don't even post it, and just kind of get in the rhythm of like, yeah, I want to share, something from the wedding day, but I don't know what yet. And I want to be, I want to be personal about it. So that could be something for you. I feel like, because you have a good personality, you're so friendly, you're insanely beautiful. Seriously, y'all don't deserve this woman.
Thanks.
Seriously, listen, my love language is like, I love words of affirmation and like lifting people up, and but like, showcase that, or like why, and whatever your values are for your wedding and the things that you like really dive in on. I think people want to know more about that, and it feels weird, right? Like
they do. I've heard that. Yeah.
Yeah. The biggest lie we tell ourselves, Terri, is that people don't love us, want to see us, or want to hear from us, and that is bullshit.
What, Adam, this is you probably didn't even plan that, but that is so like, that message right there is so on point. I was telling somebody like, hey, I'm, going to be on Adam's podcast. I was like, but I'm not interesting. I don't have anything to talk about.
That is a bunch of crap, Terri. That's a bunch of crap. There's so much that I feel like, luckily, I have the boundaries of like photography, life, and business as our boundaries. But if this was a different kind of podcast, we'd be going even deeper. I'd be asking you all kinds of stuff, because like everybody has a story and it matters, and everybody has a purpose or is figuring out their purpose, and everybody's been through some ish. And
heck yeah,
like we gotta talk about that and figure that out.
Go there, heck yeah.
So no, I mean, like that's people want to hear from you, and they want to see from you, and it doesn't have to be like hey, I'm Terri from Terri Baskin Photography. Check me out, like people can, because
I watch those stories. I'm like, that's not me, but okay.
You're like Baskin Robbins, whatever. That's like terrible jokes, but like you share what you like, or whatever. And I think for so District Winery, I'll give you a good example, just practical. We're just getting, this is not meant to be advicey, but we're just having fun here.
Heck yeah.
District Winery, right? So a venue I love, they love me back. And so weddings there, I'll like show off that relationship in not a showy way, but I'll just be like, oh yeah, the catering team brought me mashed potatoes to take home tonight, whatever. Like that's funny. And that like plays into my brain, right? Like mashed potato lovers in my email signature. And then, District Winery is giving me mashed potatoes as like an award or whatever. And like I always end up holding the bride's bouquet, and it's always just this funny contrast for this large, fat, white bearded dude to be holding this bouquet that's gorgeous, right? That's like $2,000 bouquet or whatever. So I'll always like take a selfie with it, or I'll like get the bride and be like, hey, come, grab a selfie with me, or a boomerang, or this is really funny. And I think too, it's like we get to be part of something, and so I'm always thinking about that kind of stuff, or like behind the scenes, or your District Winery is a place where other couples of mine are getting married soon. And so I love to kind of show them in the future, like, hey, this is what your wedding could look like. Or I highlight when a couple made a good decision. So I'm like, oh, they planned the perfect time for portraits. Like, look at this light.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Because we're kind of using FOMO as marketing and informing, and and it's fun and it's authentic. And they're like, oh yeah, like, duh, of course I want that. Like, that looks so cool. Or it helps them be like, oh, I didn't, this couple didn't do cakes. They did milkshakes or whatever. And like, whatever you're into. And especially if you love the details, like, every wedding, I want to see Terri just show me the details before she shoots it. Like, show me the flat lay.
Okay.
Because if
I could do that.
Because people want to know what you love, right? And so like the ideal is that you walk into that wedding day and they're like, Terri, they're not going to say it in this way, but they're like, hey, the lights are off, our water bottles are gone, all the details are laid out on the bed for you, please arrange them however you would like. Also, we got you a gift, whatever. Like that's whatever your ideal situation is. It can start with wedding day, and then that stuff gets easier and easier to share because it just means that the client knew you. And so it's really, really cool. Like I've had two clients who gave me like a gift in addition to a tip. They gave me so I have this shirt that says matte black everything. And because I just like the color black, right? And I wear it all black. Yeah. And they got me a bunch of like 2 or 3 matte black mugs. They were literally like the darkest mugs ever. Like they look like they're stealing the sun. And that was awesome. And then another one knew that I used to work for Apple and I'm kind of into tech or whatever. And they got me from the Apple campus in California because they were out there.
Wow.
Or somehow, I have no idea, a matte black Apple pen. And I was like, what
Are
in
you
the world?
serious?
Yeah.
Wow.
And, it's probably only like $30 or $40 maybe. It's not the cost, but they thought of
Nice, but
me.
still, yeah. So it's so funny because I love Oreos, and so my couples know that. So I show up with like gifts, like a gift bag with Oreos in it, and I freak out because I like them.
Yeah.
And they're like, how is she so excited over some cookies? And I'm like, because you thought about me and I love cookies. Yeah, they were $3, but still, I love them.
Yeah, it's literally, it's like you can tell what matters to people, but we're especially us as photographers, we're like in the intentionality and focused part of the hospitality industry. So it's like when we can show clients, like we ask them what their favorite candy is and we send them that candy and they're like, oh my gosh, you pay attention to me. Like, yeah, we're showing them that we're intentional and that like we care about whatever they're caring about. And so when people do that to us, we're like, hell yeah, like it feels awesome.
Yeah,
So
it's like, wow, really cool. You feel like it's so worth it, right? The extra work or the long hours. It's like, wow, they care. They care.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I love it. Terri, tell me, I want to wrap up a little bit, but tell me like,
okay, where's
the best place for people to go and find out about everything you got going on? See your work, see your flat lays or your details that you're going to share. Hold her to it, everybody. When's your first wedding, Terri? When's your first wedding?
My first wedding is in March. So it's late, late March, like the 21st.
21st? I'm going to put a literal reminder in my calendar right now.
What? Yeah.
Like text Terri to get flat lay. Show off details.
I will die laughing if you do that. Like,
yeah, 100%. Listen, I hope everybody DMs you and they're like, hey, show us the deets.
Yeah, right. Where's the flat?
But where's the best place to go see all that stuff from you? And hopefully,
so I am an Instagram junkie. So I'm at Terri Baskin. That's 2 R's and an I, Baskin, at Instagram. And then, of course, the website is terribaskin.com.
That's awesome. Terri, thank you so much for being on.
Thank you so much for having me.
Always so good to talk to my girl, Terri. Love that lady. She is just an incredible powerhouse of a woman. Like I said, she's a goddess and her work is good. She's a great lady. She's just an awesome person. Terri, you can use this in your Tinder bio. I'm just kidding. No, she's seriously wonderful, guys. Go check her out and you can just learn from her and see how she does her thing. Absolutely love her, guys. Thank you so much for listening, everybody. Have a wonderful day, guys. Keep being awesome.